introduction
Yeah.
to Mr. Christian Martin.
All right.
Inglewood native.
That's right.
Born and raised.
Yep.
Did you go to school here? Like.
So my parents met in Santa Monica. That's kind of where the story started.
Okay.
So when my parents migrated here from Mexico, they in like
Part of Mexico.
from my mom's from Michoacan and my dad's from Guadalajara.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So my dad came at like 14 years old, and my mom was about 9 years old when she came. And they landed in Santa Monica. That's the first spot where they came. And you know, my dad was the 9 brothers and sisters. He came with his dad. Yeah, he came with his dad alone, and everybody else stayed in Mexico.
Okay. He was the oldest?
He was the second oldest, but the closest to my grandfather.
Okay.
They worked together, and I think my grandfather just felt a really good bond with him. And so the two of them came over here to kind of check out what's happening. And so once they got here, they went to Santa Monica. They started a produce business. So they would go to downtown and buy produce and kind of resell it in a what I call like an modern day Amazon. So, you know, I have pictures of my dad when he was like 16 years old, you know, outside of, you know, people's homes. So what he would do, and what we grew up doing, because as little as I can remember, we would accompany him in this van, and we would go to apartment complexes, and a lot of these were like Latino apartment complexes. We would stop, and people would give us their order. So my job was to walk up with tortillas, which was the catch, right? And knock on doors and say, tortillas, tortillas. And then the ladies or the gentlemen would open the door and they say, oh, your dad's there? Yeah, give them this list. And I'd run down there, I'd get all the groceries. So everything from milk and cheese and tomatoes and everything you can imagine of like your essentials. I would bag up, and then I would go back upstairs, and then I would, you know, turn in the groceries, get the money.
Wow.
And not just me, my brothers would do it too, my older brother, and then my mom would man a store that we had on 14th and Pico. So when they first met in the 70s, they got married, they opened up a store, and then they bought their house in Inglewood because it was obviously cheaper to have a home here, but it was also kind of central. My dad can get to downtown to stock up his produce, and then he can get to Santa Monica for the store. So because we were born into like a grocery store in Santa Monica, a block away from our elementary school, my mom just figured it'd be better for her to kind of, you know, get us out after school to pick us up and watch us, you know, at a school in Santa Monica. So we didn't go to school in Inglewood, we went to school in Santa Monica. Because my parents had that business there. But once we would close the store, we would commute back to Inglewood, and that was our routine every day. So you know, kind of fast forward, but into something that is so important because it gave me 2 different perspectives, right? Going into Santa Monica at that time, it was like, I don't know what it is now, but it was like 75%, you know, Caucasian people in the school system, and 30% other, like everybody else. And so my point is that when I would go to school there, elementary and junior high, I saw certain things that when I would come back here for like my boxing classes at Rogers Park, or skateboarding here on the weekends, or hanging out with my friends and my neighbors here, like things just look different, and it kind of gave me a lot of perspective into some things we'll talk about in the future about why does this look, why is Santa Monica is looking from, you know, so much different from the area that I'm living in. But you know, I'm glad it happened that way, and it allowed, you know, for a lot of things to kind of happen. But so we went, gave me some vision, exactly. So we went to school in Santa Monica, and then, but like I said, my dad, I was born and raised here in Inglewood. My dad bought his house in, I believe it was 79 or 80 when bought his house on Fairview Boulevard, and that's where we grew up, you know, and we still have the home. So it's 5 siblings total, but it was 4 siblings for 17 years.
Oh, wow.
So
they had the bonus baby.
They had the bonus baby. When my brother was a senior in high school, and when my parents were talking about that they're done, they're gonna travel, and this is before the restaurants. This is just kind of like, hey, you know, we're done with kids, we're gonna go out. My brother had just gotten married, and I like to share the story because it's funny, but my brother had just gotten married, and we were like, hey, so when's the baby? You know, the pressure was on him. When's the baby? Where's the baby? And my sister-in-law jokingly tells my mom, because my mom's pressuring her, where's the baby? Where's the baby? And my sister-in-law tells me, well, I'll do a pregnancy test if you do a pregnancy test. And my mom was like, sure, no problem, you know, let's do it. Because you look pregnant. My mom's joking, you look pregnant. So they go get the pregnancy test, and they come out, and they're like, you know, Anna, my wife, my sister-in-law, negative. Gloria Martin, positive. My mom's like, what? she can't. She was like 40 something at the time, and she could not believe it, and she started crying, and she had tears of like fear and shock and like joy and everything. I think all at once, because the baby 17 years ago had been a very traumatic experience for her. It got to a point where it was like you were the baby type situation. So I mean, in fact, they had told her you probably will not have another baby ever again. So when she found out 17 years later, she just went back to her last pregnancy and said, God, what's gonna happen, you know, with the baby? So she was very worried, and obviously in your 40s, they say there's a lot of risks, you know, with having a baby. So, you know, nonetheless, we went through it, and you know, she called him Angel because she feels he's an angel, and so that added the fifth addition to the family. So now he's now 17. He's now 17 years old, and so
now they can go off and travel.
Yeah, all right. And they say that, but then we end up buying more restaurants and keeping them very busy. But that's very much the plan, you know, is to get them to get out, and you know, they've worked so much and they've set such a great foundation for us, and a tremendous example that I think as children now we just want to give back to them and go out and travel and do that, and you know, so we try to get them away as much as we can. So
So how do they go from the grocery business to the restaurant business?
So so we're gonna talk about basically from like the 80s all the way to 2009 when we opened the restaurant. So what is that, like 30 years, right? Like 30 years. Yeah, well, 80. So we were born in the late 80s, right? But they were, you know, they got married in 82, I believe. So when you go through that time frame, we had a grocery store, which we had for probably about 8 years or 10 years. That's what we spent our early childhood in the market and with my dad. My dad ends up selling the grocery store when we're in like middle school, high school. He ends up selling the grocery store along with this modern day Amazon business, and he sells that.
Like Instacart.
Instacart, right? That's what it is, Instacart. So he sells that, and we actually, now we're in like the 90s, like early 90s, 95. And my dad actually buys a restaurant right here on La Brea. We turned it into a seafood restaurant, but it's right next to the car wash, right here on La Brea.
La Brea and like Hughes down there?
And La Brea and like Florence. So there's that big car wash there. So that car wash, I think it still exists, a little restaurant, but in the 90s, my dad that was the first dive into a restaurant. That way it was kind of literally a hole in the wall. There was no tables to sit down. It was kind of like bar stool seating, and everything was to go. You had a little bit of area to sit down, and that was like our first dive into a restaurant, where now instead of going to the grocery store, we had to go to the restaurant. And so that's where, as a family, we got our first introduction into the whole restaurant thing. And you know, my mom, people have always loved my mom's cooking and my dad's cooking. So, and the reason why in the market, I'm gonna go back a little bit, but in the market, it was a kind of a meat market too. So my mom would do a lot of sandwiches, and they would sell meat, and so she would tortas, to be exactly tortas. So my mom would like do a lot of this in the market, and she'd put it in my dad's van, and then when my dad would go out, he would sell that. And guys would come to the market, and my mom had like a meal plan. So like construction workers or your everyday kind of mechanics would come, and they'd pay like $50, for example, or $100, and my mom would cook them meals throughout the whole week, and then they'd come and pick up their food. So that was kind of like already something that we're looking at, where some people were responding well to their food. So that's in the 90s. In the mid 90s, we go to this, we called it La Bahia. So La Bahia was kind of a seafood concept of restaurant. We sold mariscos and ceviche and cocteles and tacos and burritos and all that. We did that for about 5 years, and then one of my uncles actually ended up buying it, and we started getting into limousines. So my mom bought, we got limo. So now we're in the 2000s, and now we're in limousines. So we had like, at one point right there on Fairview, once I had like 5 limos parked. And that's what we did. Our job was to now vacuum the limos. There was no car washes. Like, we were the car wash. My mom says, "Hey, you're gonna clean the cars." So we would clean the cars for quinceañeras, weddings, birthdays, all of that, graduation. So my mom would drive the limousines, and so they were doing that for a couple years, and then ended up selling the limousines. And then this was like in the 2000, early like 2000, we kind of got into a little bit of a financial hardship. Like most families, I think that, it got a little difficult. And, we did a little bit of everything. My mom was working at Home Depot as a vendor along with my dad. And then they were also like doing stuff on the side. We would do a lot of things on the side, but at that time it was kind of dependent on, for the first time, they kind of left behind the entrepreneur stuff and went into kind of like a,
9 to 5.
yeah, like a job, but then they were doing this other stuff on the side. So we were doing construction. So then me and my dad started doing, and that's where I come in with the plants. So I met a vendor that would, sell plants to Home Depot. And when I would go help my mom, I talked to the vendor and said, hey, can you sell these plants? He says, yeah. So I would buy plants from him and I would sell them like, on Slauson before you get to the Home Depot, like on a Saturday morning with a big old sign. And, if someone's watching this, they call the cops on me a couple of times. Get this guy out of here. It's disturbing the neighborhood. But it was very rewarding, and it's something that was the first time of me kind of looking back and seeing my parents' entrepreneurial skills and putting them to test on my own. And the best part about that was my parents were so supportive, right? Like, hey, you want to do that? Go ahead. So I would sell plants on the weekends and do all that. And then you fast forward to 2008 when we're all out of high school at this point, including my 17-year-old brother. We're all out of high school. And a little bit out of high school, probably I think my youngest one was like 20, my youngest brother. And we decided, my dad says, okay, now let's do a restaurant. Everybody's grown enough, we can all help. But the only problem with that is that the economy was horrible. We were just coming off of, a recession. I don't know if you remember the political kind of ambiance at the time. It was a lot of, the war, and I think that when President Obama was coming into office around the time, and it was kind of like a lot of uncertainty at that time with what is the financial situation in this country. People were losing homes left and right. It was really bad. So that's when we said, let's get this little restaurant. It was a hole in the wall on 64th and La Brea. You could probably sit like maybe 20 people, and but it was like, let's do it. Let's open up a restaurant, and that's how, we started off with maybe 2 employees, and everybody else was family. So my mom, my dad, and we all had kind of our day job. And when you weren't doing your day job, you were at the restaurant. So that's kind of how in 2009, December 21st of 2009 was the first day we opened our doors to Fiesta Martin Mexican Grill. And that's kind of how it was born. So it was like all of this kind of like years of kind of like entrepreneurship and failures and tribulations and some successes here. And in 2009, it kind of all came together and say, let's do this as a team. Let's see what happens. And we went into it with so much uncertainty and just said, maybe we could just sell $100 a day. That would be $3,000. We can pay the rent. And that was like, that was our idea. Like let's just do that. And so we invited our friends and family to come out, and we never looked back. Sometimes people ask you, did you ever imagine? No, like we never in a million years thought that, from 2009 to 2023, we look back and have 6 restaurants. That was never the goal. The goal was just to sell $100 a day and pay the rent and have a business that we can kind of, be in the community. And it was born from this idea. The people of Inglewood remember, I think the restaurant we're sitting today, it used to be a Los Ponchos. So it was it was a restaurant that's been around for many years in the city. I think it was the people in town, if you will, was like Los Ponchos. There was Acosta Tacos, which at the time was already closing their doors. So when you go on this side of town, so we grew up on Fairview, which is kind of like North Inglewood, near North Inglewood Park and all that. And anywhere going up in that area, there was very little like places to find a wet burrito and enchiladas and tacos. And so when growing up on Fairview, it was kind of like there was not a place that you can go. And, outside of a couple of places that I mentioned, like there was not a lot of places to go and get Mexican food. So it kind of was born from this idea that like, hey, we want to serve our community. We want something that, we're all old enough to kind of work. Let's do something in our community, and let's kind of get my parents' cooking in here and see how people respond to it. And that's kind of how it all started, and never looked back after that.
No chef school, none of that.
None of that.
Very
No,
simple,
not.
like,
Unfortunately,
just
not.
some good home cooked.
Just yeah,
vision.
exactly. And it's crazy that, you know, that's all it takes sometimes, right? You know, my respects to the people that study to be chefs. I think that's a phenomenal trade. In fact, my brother, youngest brother, who's 17 now, wants to go to culinary school.
Oh, okay.
You know, and that's and we are completely open to that idea because we know the knowledge he's going to bring back to us, because you do it at a level and you kind of do it so much now and you learn throughout the years, but you know, there's a particular unique set of skills that a school kind of will give you. And if you can mix that with the experience, I think you have a, you know, a great recipe. But yes, to answer your question, it was just mom and dad's cooking, and really, I don't want to give credit to the people that have worked with us throughout these years that have contributed their kind of feedback and success. You know, our menu doesn't look nothing like when it first started. And I mean, as much as we did a lot of work, it was also a lot of our staff, right? That, you know, a lot of them are still with us today. Even from the beginning, we have employees that have been with us for 10 plus years, a lot of them. But you know, even the ones that have been gone, you know, everybody has always contributed a little bit to this Martin brand now. So, you know, it's a lot of just putting pieces together and saying, does this work? Does this work? Change that. And so it very much is a family and team contribution.
So you started with Fiesta Martins, and then was it the taco shop or what?
So yeah, so 2009 we opened Fiesta Martin, and we started you know, selling tacos outside Fiesta Martin, like 2010, 11, just to get people to know that we're here. Like, Inglewood, we're here. We will sell tacos outside, and the people watching this probably remember we would do them inside on Taco Tuesday, and there was smoke everywhere. It was so bad, you know? Like, you look back, you're like, what were we doing, right? But people love the idea of a taco cart inside the restaurant, and so we would do it every Tuesday. It was just like smoke everywhere, like, and you know, we were like serving canned sodas, because, you know, we didn't know that you can call Coca-Cola and Coca-Cola will come and like bring you the syrup and all. Like, I mean, you knew that, but you didn't know that, you know. You just want to start, you just want to sell your food, and so you kind of learn all these other things along the way. And so you know, we started selling tacos outside. People started to get to know us. My dad was, you know, very instrumental in doing what we call taquizas. So a lot of people may be watching this. You probably had at one point us going out to a birthday party or a wedding or something, especially in the Ladera neighborhood and in Inglewood neighborhood. We would do them for like $200 or $250. We would go out, we'd grill in front of you, we'd serve 50 people tacos, and then we'd give you menus and say, come to our restaurant. So we did a lot of that in a marketing effort to get people to back to our restaurant. And then we just did a lot of guerrilla marketing. Like, we would kind of go around the neighborhood and let people try our food, businesses, and say, hey, look, try this. And we started off with a Taco Tuesday thing because at the time, everybody had a lot of different days. And I'm going back to 2009, and you could do the research. There was not a lot of like Taco Tuesday. Nowadays is a lot. Very popular. Very popular, but there was not, like, Taco Tuesday did not exist in that time. And so my dad thought it was just a good day to do it midweek. It was one of our slowest days.
Get people in.
And get people in the door. And so we started off with 99-cent tacos, and we started the sign out, and that's when the taco cart came out. We started to get people to come out, 99-cent tacos. So Taco Tuesday started outside and then kind of worked its way in. But it started outside in an effort to get people to kind of come out and buy tacos at a special price. And then when we went inside, that's when the crispy tacos started. So it went from like the soft shell tacos to the crispy tacos. And then, you know, we started to get a lot of popularity. At this point, people were getting to know us. And in 2012, I mean, we were packed at this point. So 3 years, maybe 4 years in, people already knew who we were. We were busy on Taco Tuesdays and stuff. And 2 businesses down, there was a place that I think I got it, something with tortilla in like the 70s or 80s used to be called that restaurant. And then it was something else, and it was another restaurant. And the guy that had the restaurant was going out of business. And he knocked on our door and says, hey, I know you guys have this restaurant here, but, you know, this has a full kitchen, a much bigger kitchen. I mean, I love what you guys are doing. I'm gonna be leaving town. If you're interested, we can, you know, sell you the building. And we're like, really? And like, sure. And that guy, God bless him, he ended up, you know, helping us buy the building. And so we bought the building, and that's when Fiesta Tacos was born. And Fiesta Tacos was kind of just this extension of Fiesta Martin.
Right.
So because we were so busy and we can sit only a few people, it would work as an overflow. Exactly. Sometimes we get parties of 20, like, well, where do we sit? We don't have room, you know? So this kind of worked as an overflow space for people to come in and still enjoy our food at a bigger location. So a lot of people watching, or maybe people that know, ask, why is there two restaurants, you know? And people kind of, you know, find their little niche. Some people describe this one as the more quieter one, the tacos. This was like, this was too loud for me. The hard liquor and all the noise. And so they'll go to the tacos, and it's the same menu, but we do, when we first did it, we started offering meats that we don't offer at the other restaurant.
Okay.
So we have things like mulitas, and we have things like sopes, and certain things that we don't have at the especially meat. So like buche or cabeza, like certain parts of meat that we don't have over here.
Real authentic.
The real, like, lengua. I mean, the kind of stuff that you can probably find if you're driving down Slauson at the top. Like, that's what we have at this time. So a lot of people still kind of come forward to that, and we've never lost it. So at Fiesta Martin Tacos, we have the full Fiesta Martin menu, plus, you know, like a secret menu of like, you know, some other items, if you will.
Got it.
So that was my point, is that was the second location in around 2014 or 15. And then in 2016, Fiesta Martin Bar and Grill was born.
Okay.
And when we first got to that restaurant, the people probably remember that it was a Tony Roma's many years ago.
Oh, wow.
And then,
I forgot about that.
it was a Tony Roma's. And after the Tony Roma's, it was I think a Jamaican restaurant. And then it was just vacant for many years. So we had been driving it. And one day my mom says, you know, it had sign there like for years. And that kind of shopping center was kind of like on its way down. I mean, other than the CVS and the, you know, I think the O'Reilly's at the time had been there for years. That shopping center wasn't really, you know, a real destination place. But the restaurant looked big. And mind you, we're having a lot of success at these two little restaurants, to the point where it's like, should we like expand? And that's when we said, I think this would be great. And honestly, it was like, man, when I tell you, like, we cooked that grand opening, we cooked on a Friday, on a Thursday for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we thought we're gonna stock up, you know, for the weekend. We're gonna have enough rice and beans for, you know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. When we opened the doors on that Friday, it was like 4 o'clock and we were sold out of, I mean, had the other restaurants, hurry up and cook more rice. And I mean, we went through everything we anticipated to sell. And
It really supported it.
it really supported. And I always say that I think it was like the right restaurant at the right time, where it was, I mean, you could imagine, as we didn't change structurally anything of the Tony Roma's building. So, you know, these big companies like Tony Roma's at that time, they built really good, structurally good restaurants, right? Where you have your bar area, and then you have your kind of like other side area, and then your whole dining area, a full kitchen. For people that know, the Fiesta Martin used to be a cafe. It was a cultural affair. Margot, who sold us the place, still comes down every now and then. People probably remember a cultural affair. It was a coffee shop. It was not designed for a restaurant. It was designed for a coffee shop. So we were doing miracles in there. Like, and so when this restaurant came, it was much more suited for a full service restaurant with a full bar and everything. Like the way a restaurant probably is more, I should call it like traditionally designed to be. So it was the perfect restaurant at the perfect time. I think they had just secured, like, the Forum was going to get rebuilt at the time. But that was really only, I think SoFi was still like up in the air. The football stand, none of the other stuff. It was just really just the Forum. That was like the only thing. And so it was like, oh, the Forum is coming. Now there's this new big restaurant, Fiesta Martin, which went from here to this big restaurant. And we have live entertainment, and it's active, and the community really supported that.
Nice.
And that restaurant is, to this day, is our more successful restaurant of the bunch.
Wow.
It is it's on Florence Boulevard, very highly trafficked. Yeah. And so people always, I like the La Brea one, and you know, the La Brea one is always busy, always busy. But I think that the Florence one, because of its capacity to sit more and just, you know, do more, it has been our most successful restaurant. And I always tell that story because we never anticipated that we were going to sell everything by 4 o'clock. and I remember on the grand opening, we're running around like crazy, and we're like, food was taking forever, and people were getting mad and leaving, and they're like, hey, you know, I'm out of here. My food's been taking an hour.
Right.
And we're so stressed out, and we weren't ready. Like, I mean, you think you're ready. We did not, and mind you, this is like a little operation, and this is just a full-scale traditional restaurant.
Right.
But we learned so much, and I remember that day, a lady grabbed my mom and says, hey, she's like, don't worry, like, we're here for you. Like, we're here to support you.
Yes.
And that just gave us like this whole much calm, because, I mean, honestly, people were really mad. Like, where's my food? It's been an hour, and this drink is wrong, and the kid, it was such a mess. And we look back sometimes and we laugh and then say, oh my God, what, you know, what a mess. But that lady, I think, really put into perspective what a lot of people were there in the community for, and really what the community has been with us, kind of hand in hand for all of these years, like supporting us. And so we went through a pandemic. I mean, all these things, right? And we wouldn't be where we're at today if it wasn't for the Inglewood community. I mean, I can wholeheartedly say that and say it that with a lot of joy, that, you know, that's why we haven't left Inglewood. So people ask, well, why don't you leave Inglewood? Why don't you open? Because we feel so like appreciative of, you know, what the community has given to us. So, you know, we're talking a little bit off camera, but it's like, when you think about Martin's Cantina and how it was born, it was like, we want to build a nice restaurant. We want to build a place where you don't have to leave Inglewood and you can have it in our community. And so, you know, even though it was really expensive to kind of put it all together, we felt like it was right. It felt right to do it in our own community, and pour that same money back into it, and create jobs and create, you know, an environment and a space for people to come in. And you, when you feel that, like when I've had people come in, and like grown men and women telling me in tears, like, thank you for uplifting our community. You feel like mission accomplished. Like, you feel like everything we were trying to do did it, because now people say, like, I don't have to leave Inglewood when my friends come from you know, Beverly Hills. I can take them to a cantina and be like, look at what we have to offer in Inglewood. And now it's kind of a, you know, now it's a trend you see happening, and I'm so happy to see it happening with Hilltop as our neighbors and folks like that are saying, let's build a business in our own community to serve our community, and uplift it, right? And let's create a good product in a beautiful looking space, and the people will come. And now you're seeing it spread out through Inglewood, and it's just such a great thing to see. So
you guys have built this big enterprise. What's your role?
So so I wear a lot of hats, as you could imagine. So, you know, I have been very much, I guess, a visionary behind the scenes for the family. We always like to say that we all kind of have our own kind of areas that we like to lean on for strength. My role particularly has always been one of like real estate acquisitions. I was very fortunate enough to work with AT&T for many years. So I worked with AT&T while we were doing like the restaurants. And at the time, AT&T was paying me pretty well. I was in sales, so the restaurant couldn't afford to pay me. You know, I didn't care. I was just working. You know, it's your business, so you work for it. You're not looking for a profit. You're just looking for the long term, right? But it was kind of a safe way for me to be able to work at a corporation and then also grow the business. And I'll tell you what that did. So when we were right before we opened the restaurant, I think in 2007 is when I started working with AT&T. We opened the restaurant in 2009. I left Best Buy to go work. So I'm working at Best Buy and I'm selling plants on slots and I'm doing a little bit of everything. And I tell my dad, I said, Dad, I'm gonna go work for AT&T. And you know, Best Buy was like a part-time job. So he's like, what are you doing? Like, we're doing construction at the time and you're selling plants, you're making money. Like, and I remember looking at my dad and said, Dad, I need to know, I'm not gonna go the college route. I'm not gonna go to college. It's not something that is drawn to me. I feel like an entrepreneur. I feel like when I was in the street selling like plants and delivering it to homes and bringing down stock, like I like that feeling. So I felt like a connection there, right? And so I told my dad, I said, I'm gonna go work for this big company called AT&T because one day we're gonna have a multi-million-dollar company, and I need to know how it operates from the inside. The infrastructure. So I went into AT&T with every intention to obviously have a job and be successful in it. But I always tell this to people because sometimes these big corporations offer you a glimpse into things that you're gonna be doing in your own company if you're ever gonna have one, right? Or if you desire to have one. So I encourage a lot of young people to work for it. Like, I wanna be a plumber, or I wanna open up my own this. Okay, find a business that exists and go work in that.
Right, learn it.
And learn it. And here's why. Like, because if you make a mistake at a job, you know, you can get fired, you can get written up, you know, a lot of things. When you make a mistake in your own company, it can cost you a lot of money, right? And so when I went in there, like, I use an example of like the trainings, right? It was an environment of like, oh, just click, 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 just compliance. We're compliant with our training. And that, you know, you see that in corporate culture, you know, training. But I was like, sexual harassment training? Like, what is this battery stuff? Like, what is California recycle? Like, all these things, like, I needed to know, because in the back of my head, I thought one day, and then, so as I'm working, 2 years into working at AT&T, the restaurant is born, and I'm like, aha. So I'm coming into, like, you know, we're sitting down as a family, I'm like, we gotta, you know, do customer experience. Like, what are you talking about? Like, and I'm like, trust me, like, we're like, this is so wrong. We gotta have inventory. You know, I'm running stores at the time, so I'm a store. Yeah. Hold on. Like, we had a little register, like, you know, like, this is wrong. Like, we gotta do a scanner. Like, I'm just thinking, like, so many things. I'm looking at two worlds. Like, literally a mom and pop, and then I'm looking at like AT&T, a whole corporation, and I'm looking at like how we did things over there. How there was a structure of managers and assistant managers and sales reps. And then, you know, how we sold things. And really, AT&T at the time was extremely focused on winning the J.D. Power Awards on customer experience. So that really dove us into, like, I flew to Atlanta. I went, you know, as I grew in the company at AT&T, I went from sales rep to basically all the way to director by the time I left. And so I was really embedded into this whole AT&T environment. And they were really, like, the heart of the business was all about customer experience, at least on the retail side. That was our job. Obviously to sell and give them iPhones and all that, but I was like, when we opened the AT&T store, I mean the Fiesta Martin store, I was a manager at the Santa Monica store at AT&T on Wilshire and like 3rd or something. So I was, you know, we were launching the iPhone, and so I'm watching the experience, right, of like how people are coming in, and we're managing wait times. So you can imagine, like, I'm looking at wait time statistics. We had door counters on how many people are coming in the door. We had data for everything. And I'm going back to my like business, like, we need a door counter. We need to manage this like customer experience. Like, where are the surveys? We were doing like surveys, like, where's that everyone had a survey. Like, we need to leave surveys at the table to measure, like I'm thinking like, yeah. So I really got a chance to dive into like knowing what these big corporations do, and then applying it in our own kind of like, you know, day to day. So going back to your original question of my role is, I've always been a lot of like, you know, very active, involved in all the day-to-day operations. But I would say that my biggest role is overlooking like the operations, the real estate, the expansion, you know, the future of this kind of enterprise that we have. And then, you know, when 5 o'clock hits, I forget about all that and I start serving chips, salsa, serving you a drink, sweeping tables, whatever it takes. But yeah, that's what I enjoy doing, and it's something that I think my family has found to fit well. One of my other brothers really enjoys like being in the kitchen, so, you know, we bounce a lot of stuff off each other, like, hey, you know, what do you think about this? And he oversees a lot of the kitchen operations, and he's a very operations type guy. He does our schedules, and, you know, I like doing schedules, but not that much, you know. He's very much involved in a lot of that stuff. And, you know, my brother and sister are very much like hands-on serving. My sister helps train a lot of our servers, and a lot of people know my sister Sandy, because she was like our first server at the restaurant. So people throughout the years who just fell in love with Sandy. Oh, where's Sandy? Sandy, because she's just like a sweetheart and a very much a people person. And so she really helps us manage the experience on the floor at some of the restaurants. And same thing with my other brother. He's like this super energetic, you know, I want to be out there. And so you need that, right? Like, I always talk about this because not one role is better than the other.
Yeah.
It's just every role is important.
Right.
I can't go out and think about opening another Fiesta Martin without the support of my brothers who are there, like saying, hey, I got this under control. Okay, let's do the, you know what I'm saying? Like, exactly. Every, position, my dad does a lot of our buying on stuff. My mom is like our HR and back end. And my mom is everything. She's like the one that, the glue that holds everything together. But all of our roles are very unique. Not one of them is ever better than the other. Yeah. And a lot of that is just the way we were raised with my mom, very equal and in an environment that really set us up now as business partners, because that's what we are in family, is really to respect each other, to understand each other. We know that we're not always going to agree on things, but maybe your strengths will lead us to other areas, and if you fail, it's okay. Let's try this other way and let's keep going. So, yeah.
Love it.
So yeah, that's the role.
Nice. So what do you like to do like when you're not working?
I don't know that. I don't know yet. That's not no. I would say we talked about this off camera, but as of 3 months ago, I think what I like to do when I'm not working is spending time with my newborn. It's a new addition to the family, and it's very much a distraction from you forget about how many tacos and
Right.
meetings, and you start changing diapers and you forget of all that.
Right.
Yes, I've always said this, right? That, and you hear a lot about this in interviews, and people say it, like work-life balance. And AT&T used to talk about this a lot, right? And I almost felt at the time it's like they're dividing it, right? Like work-life balance because you need it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm kind of like divided with the two, right? I can honestly tell you in my space today that I don't necessarily believe in work-life balance, because I feel like what I'm doing is my passion and is my life.
Yes.
So what am I balancing if this is what I love to do?
That's true.
Right? So now, mind you, as a husband and as now a father, you very much have to balance, your time and all that. So I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. I'm talking about as far as the work is concerned. There was a saying that like, oh, if you're always looking forward to a vacation, what are you vacationing from? Like, what are you so eager to leave? Right? Now, of course, I want to be in the beach. I mean, who doesn't, right? And so sometimes people take the things deeper, but really, it just around, having a passion for what you do, right? And no matter what it is. And growing up, my dad was always tell us that, like, I don't care what you guys do. I don't care if you're a mechanic, if you sell lollipops on the street. I don't care. Just try to be the best at it. And so, you asked me what do I like to do outside, and a lot of my energy and passion and what I really love to do is really this. Like, I told you we were in Temecula at a property we had, and we were driving and we had some guests and we're giving them a tour. Like, stop the van, get out. There's a restaurant for lease right there. Let's check it out. And so, this is like a lot of what I love to do is work, Yeah. And when I'm not working, there's your extracurricular activities, golfing and, I'm a movie guy, so I love to watch movies. But now with the baby, you don't have time for anything. You can imagine, restaurant and the baby, you're full. There's only 24 hours in the day. So yeah. But I love spending time with the family, and I feel like this is a project, that needs work, and so I see it as my hobby, right? Like, when you talk about a vision, so you see a vision, but you got to put it together, right? And I think back when I was a kid, loved playing with Legos and building, and that's how I look at this thing called the Martin kind of enterprises you put. It's like, hold on, every day I'm thinking like, well, what about this and what about that, and you're kind of building it, and so that is very much my hobby.
On that note, last question, what do you see next for the Martin enterprise?
So the vision for the Martins, I think we want to so we have a couple of projects coming up, right? We have a restaurant and a surprise location. I won't say where, a Fiesta Martin location coming.
Is it LA County?
LA County. And then we have the Antojitos Martin restaurant coming to Hollywood Park. So that has been out there and been published, and we start construction there soon. So we're excited for that project and get to be in a big stage and have our food and service there. And then we are starting to kind of look outside of that, right? And we have a couple other kind of side things going on. We have Inglewood Pedicab, which I told you about, which is like a bike service that we want to. So we've kind of planted a lot of seeds, and we want to start to, see what is the 2.0 versions of those look like. So we are looking like in the maybe 5-year projection at a couple more restaurants, maybe outside of Inglewood.
Okay.
I know we have 2 more coming, so that by the end of this year, God willing, we'd have 8 restaurants in the Inglewood, LA area, and a potential big project that we have on a property that we acquired, and we're looking at something big, something really big. So, and that will be here in Inglewood too.
Okay.
And then I think so. There's a lot more projects coming, and I think we're also just looking at improving where we're at. We're very aware of the changing climate in Inglewood, the competition coming, the renovation, all that, and that's good for. I think it's like any business. Once you go through 10 years of then you need a reset, right? And all right, let's go back and focus on the fundamentals, right? Let's go back and let's walk the Fiesta Martin restaurant. What is good? What is bad? What can we improve? Let's look at our service. Let's look at our food. So we really want to. We feel that with the 8 restaurants that we'll soon have, we have our hands full, and we really need to make sure that those 8 restaurants, people are having the best experience, right? And when you're growing, you kind of may skip here and there. So there comes a time where it's like, all right, stop the growth, let's regroup. And so we want to spend a lot of time doing that and finding ways to improve, maybe revamping some menus, introducing new drinks, and kind of just adapting to the changing climate in Inglewood. I've always said that in business, you have to constantly be changing. Maybe what worked 15 years ago is not going to work 5 years from now. So you need to be aware, and some things that are good, you don't have to change, but the ones that are, maybe you need to revamp it. So that's what I see is a lot of work on the existing infrastructure while looking at, growth for, 2 locations for sure, and then a big project.
Right. And we're
that
going
was
to real estate portfolio.
That's right. Yeah. Our, we love real estate. We've had a passion for real estate. Going back to my parents buying their first property, they always kind of taught us that, right? That, the best investment you can make is in real estate. So ever since I can remember, my mom was just beating that in our head, like, save up for a property, save up for a property, save up for a property. And so we love real estate. I told you a little bit about my practice in real estate a little bit. One of my brothers has a real estate license, and we love buying properties and fixing them up. And I'll share with you guys something that's pretty cool. Like, a lot of the properties that we've bought have actually been in Inglewood. So when you talk about reinvesting, the same money that we get into our community, we reinvest it. And what do? We buy properties, but not just properties just for our sake.
Yeah.
We buy these properties, and sometimes they're multi-unit properties or single properties, whatever. And then a lot of the people that work with us rent these properties.
You're providing housing.
We're providing housing. And what does that do when you look at it from a company standpoint? It lowers your attrition. It creates a happier employee because they have a safe environment, security. And it's proximity to work. I mean, all these things that are interconnected. When you look at, the models of Silicon Valley and some of these tech companies where they offer housing inside, it's kind of like, hey, you are invested in the community 100%. So the people that maybe were living in a different part and now we buy a property and then they move in, well, guess what? Their water bill is with Inglewood. They do their groceries in Inglewood. They pay taxes in Inglewood. They wash their car in Inglewood. So everything starts to kind of rebuild it. So a lot of the real estate we've bought over the years has been in Inglewood, and we like to get folks that, before we put on the market, which we hardly ever do, it's we send it out, hey, we have a house, we have 2-bedroom apartment, oh, I want it. And people are always saying, be wary of that, but again, I mean, we've never really had that kind of problem. I'm sure maybe one day we will, and you'll deal with it just like any other tenant or whatever, but our guys are so appreciative, their families, and it feels so great to see people you know, sometimes people tell us we were paying $3,000 over here, now we're paying $2,000, so we have extra money.
Right.
And another thing we like to do is celebrate when people buy homes in our business. So whenever somebody buys a home, we congratulate them, we give them a little, you know, something special. And we've had a lot of our employees buy homes, you know, so we encourage that a lot, and we love that. I mean, it's kind of embedded in everything that we do. As we look at real estate, even for restaurants, we look at acquiring. That doesn't happen all the time, but if we can acquire the real estate, what we do, it's like the McDonald's model, right? That everyone talks about, but it's true. It creates a competitive edge that the other person will never have, you know, and because once you own the real estate, it's a different game versus paying rent on, you know, crazy rent. And I'm not saying that that's a bad model. Either one can work. This one can fail too, but it just creates an advantage of saying, you know, if you have the building, it's a growing asset, right?
And you have control.
And you have control. So yeah, so we love our you know, we love our real estate, and we love talking to people like you who are doing great things in our community. So thank you for that, and we look forward to maybe hosting some real estate seminars here at the restaurant.
I love that about you. You're all about giving back to the community.
Yeah.
Every aspect.
Yeah.
You know, comes back to giving back to your community.
And I think it just kind of goes back to, you know, being grounded, right? And being a human being, and understanding that, you know, you can't get this far on your own. You know, it's a team environment. You know, it takes a village. If I was to sit here on camera and say, oh, we were like, no one's gonna. It's not. Thanks to Inglewood, the people that have been supporting us through years. And it's, you know, going back to this idea, like when we opened up and people, oh, you're opening because of the change, and you're opening because Inglewood is gentrifying. Yeah, right. And it's funny because the people that come through the doors is the same community that's been supporting us through so many years. And more specifically, the Black and Brown community that has made up Inglewood for so many years is the same one that has supported us for so many years. And that's what we feel so vested in here, and that's why it's home. And we feel so appreciative, and we love to, you know, give back. We do, you know, we've done scholarships for kids, and you know, anytime the fire department, police department, anybody, the little leagues and stuff like that. Whatever opportunity presents itself, not all the time because you can't do it at all of them, but whenever opportunities present itself, we love to kind of give back because, you know, we are what we are because of the community and the hard work of our team. You know, they contribute to our success every day, and we're very appreciative of that. So yeah.
Well, thank you.
No problem. My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for coming out, and we'll invite people to come to Martin's Cantina, and and look forward to, like I said, hosting more events here, and open the doors for our community to come and experience this space or any space in our restaurants, and having a whatever it is. We got you. We got you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.